The polls are spelling trouble for President Biden ahead of the midterms, potentially losing a big backing. In a Quinnipiac University poll, 26% of Hispanic voters approved of the president's job performance, marking it the lowest mark of any demographic. And this drastic decrease could foreshadow a major drop in support for Democrats this fall, all while the president is facing growing pushback from both sides over lifting a pandemic border policy known, of course, as Title 42. Our D.C. insider, NewsNation D.C. Bureau Chief Mike Viqueira joins us now. So, Vic, with little more than a month to go before those pandemic restrictions are lifted at the border, more and more Democrats speaking out. They're breaking ranks with the White House. Yep. And today, another high-profile senator speaking out again.
Yeah, and this is really interesting, Nichole, because it gives us an indication of just how politically unpopular this proposal to lift Title 42, that pandemic rule put forward in the Trump administration, still in effect, that keeps migrants out of the country during the pandemic. Little more than a month now, as you report. Gary Peters. And what's interesting about this guy, telling The Hill, our partner newspaper, that he is not on board with lifting Title 42. And again, what's interesting about him? He's the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, and he's in charge of getting Democrats elected to the Senate, the top Democratic senator who heads something called the DSSC, which makes sure that Democrats have all the money and the policy stances they need to get reelected. He tells our partners at The Hill that unless we have a well thought out plan, I think this is something that should be revisited or delayed. And so what this is telling us is that as we expect that flood of migrants to come towards the border, Michelle, some 18,000, the upper end estimate each day, we are seeing a number of Democrats now walking away from the Biden administration and the proposal to lift Title 42 on May 23rd. He joins a cast of other very vulnerable Democrats. Peters just ran for re-election. He's safe. But Democrats in swing states who are running for re-election this year are also jumping ship and voicing their opposition to lifting that rule, Nichole.
All right, our D.C. insider, Mike Viqueira, thank you so much for that. All right, we're going to move on now. Another key issue for voters is the midterms, high gas prices. In an Axios article, Pennsylvania swing voters strongly favor ramping up domestic oil drilling to combat those high gas prices. Republicans say if they win back power, they will push to increase domestic oil production. Now, while President Biden has been branding high gas costs as Putin's price hike and the Russia-Ukraine war, Axios reporter Sarah Muhan now joining us. Sarah, you wrote that article. Now, these swing voters had a lot to say when it comes to this domestic oil drilling and these high gas prices. What are their thoughts on where things stand right now?
They absolutely did. And, those swing voters, these are voters who voted for Donald Trump in 2016, switched their vote in 2020 to Joe Biden. They said that they're feeling the effects of these rising gas prices on their pocketbooks. And importantly, 8 out of 13 of those voters are in favor of ramping up domestic oil drilling. Now, that's interesting because, of course, that's a point that Republicans are planning on running on in the midterm elections. Now, 2/3 of those voters said that they actually blame Putin over President Biden for those rising gas costs. But no one bought the argument that the idea of paying more for gas is somehow supportive of the Ukrainian people or that it's a patriotic gesture. They said, that's not our choice. We have to pay the price of gas no matter what it is, and we don't want to be paying more.
Yeah, certainly not. In a war that keeps coming up, midterms. We know several celebrities at this point hopping onto the campaign trail. One of them, of course, in Pennsylvania. We're talking about Dr. Oz. He's running for the Republican U.S. Senate seat there. Do these celebrities like Dr. Oz have it all to win, or is this really lackluster for voters?
Well, if you ask these Pennsylvania swing voters what they thought about Dr. Oz, I think they'd say it's pretty lackluster. The words that they used most frequently when asked to describe him included fraud, hack, celebrity, and not in a positive way. And interestingly about Dr. Oz, he did receive President Trump's endorsement, but in his campaign finances that recently just came out, most of the money that he raised is actually his own.
Oh, interesting. All right, Axios reporter Sarah Muha joining us live. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.